Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's show, Friends in Recovery Community Podcast. And I am Tif, and of course, we have Bambi. Bambi B. I think that's funny. That's why I was like, Bambi. Anyway,
I should be Buckeye Bambi.
Buckeye Bambi.
Yeah, I should be
good.
Buckeye Bambi.
You should change your name to
right,
that.
I should change that. I will. For next week, I'll be Buckeye Bambi.
Buckeye Bambi. And Ed is gone. We miss you. We need you. It's so much easier when you just run this show and then I can just get on and talk and, say funny things and interrupt you and cut you off and do things like that. But anyway, you'll be back next week. And we will be grateful for that. But I hope you guys are having fun at the convention and meeting lots of people and learning lots of new things. Anyway, this week's show is about Tradition 7. And so we'll get into that. I haven't prepared very much, I'm going to be honest with you. And it's been a while. So Bambi has prepared a whole bunch. So I'm hoping that she can just carry us as the newbie. She can just carry us through this show and it'll be the Buckeye Bambi show today.
Well, I just wanted to argue because I'm like, I don't agree with some of this, so I need you to set me straight on some of it. So,
all right, well, that's good. That's how we'll do it. I'll read off the tradition, what it is. And then you ask those questions like, why is it like that? All right. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind everybody that we, of course, on all the social media platforms. So if you want to, it would be very, very nice if you shared all of the platforms with your friends, recommended them to join us and follow us and like us on Facebook, of course, and YouTube and all the other social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram and all of those fun things. Well, also, we haven't mentioned this in a while. We're on the Telegram app. So if you have Telegram or download the Telegram app on your phone, you can join the Friends in Recovery community and you can be in a live chat that goes 24/7 with our internal community. And we're there. We're not only supportive, we also answer questions and things like that. I do want to, Ed, it was very important to him to share his phone number so that if anybody needs help, or if they just want to talk, we have been sharing our phone numbers. And so I'm going to read off Ed's and I'm going to look at it so that I make sure I get it right. It is Ed C. Jersey. Ed, where are you? Just sent which one too? I'm using a different phone, the office phone, and I can't find anything. Anyway, I'll work on that. But in the meantime, mine is 952-688-1092. So if you ever need anything, or if you just need to chat, or you need some support or some advice, go ahead and give me a shout. And of course, you can also call Jersey Ed. And he is at 215-694-1994. And I think that's pretty cool that we're giving out our phone numbers again. That's how I found the Friends in Recovery community back about, I don't know, it's been a couple of years now, but I was one of those crazy people that I said this last week. I called Ed just to see if they were really these people that were crazily giving out their phone number on this podcast that's broadcast all over and they can't control it. I thought this has to be fake. This is some sort of joke, right? They're trying to sell something or get you. I thought, you know what I really thought? I thought they were trying to get you into treatment. I thought you would call that phone number and they'd be like, come into treatment or do whatever. I don't know what I thought. But anyway, I called and they actually answered and I hung up the phone because I freaked out. I was like, there's a real human over there. But he was there. And then, of course, we always have our emails. So you can email us anytime and all these things will be in the show notes. So we're going to get started now. We don't have any sober shout outs, so we're just going right into the tradition, which is tradition 7. And tradition 7 states every AA group ought to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. So Bambi, you said that you had some questions, and this is a very interesting one. We talk about this tradition the most. It's mentioned in the meetings. It's mentioned all over. It's a very commonly talked about tradition, but I don't think a lot of people really dive into it and know exactly what's going on. And it sounds like you have. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, there's all these rules. Like to start with, it was like the principles behind making that decision. And it said gaining spirituality and avoiding outside interference were the two big key areas that they wanted to maintain AA in its integrity. They wanted, people to gain the spirituality of being able to be self-supporting and stuff. But there's specifics, like,
oh yeah,
you can only donate $5,000 per year. Like, even if I go out and hit the lottery and I want to donate, that's my limit.
It's your limit. So
it's my limit.
What happened is, well, first of all, we're a bunch of addicts and alcoholics. So just like everybody else, when you got sober, you want, if you were like me, and I know like Bill W. and a lot of other people that the book tells us about, you want to save the world afterwards, right? You can't understand why not everybody wants to join AA. And so they had all these great ideas that they were going to start all these foundations. They were going to have their own hospitals. They were going to have their own treatment centers. Basically, they were going to do everything and provide everything for anybody who was a drunk, and they were going to fix them, right? And if they had all these things, different levels of a building, just crazy. Because of course we always have that all or nothing thinking, and we dive right in and we get passionate about something, and especially about this because we started feeling so good, right? And our life started changing, and so we wanted everybody to know about it. So that limit was set in that, keeping that in mind. They actually, the original hospital that Bill W. was treated at and where he was introduced to AA, that doctor, first of all, couldn't believe that Bill was sober. He finally was like, oh my gosh. And that doctor said to him, because Bill went to the doctor in that hospital and said, would you mind if I started sharing this with people? And he was like, well, yes, right? Like, he tried to treat Bill for years and there was so many relapses, and he finally got sober to treat him. So as he watched him do this, Bill was like, or the guy said to Bill, the doctor said to Bill, he said, you really got something here. I think you could make a living off of this. Like really that sales spirit, like you could really, really make a living off of this. And so, that's where the idea started rolling. Well, we'll just do all these things. We'll start our own stuff and we'll take care of all the drunks, and they'll all have a place to go now, right? Nobody's going to turn them away. And we're going to do it all through donations. They went, and actually it was the Rockefellers. It was all these people that Bill was connected with, went to a huge like event that was hosted. And he was going to go to this event that was hosted by I think it was the Rockefellers. And pitch this idea to start these, large donations. And it was after that I think it was Rockefeller himself. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong about the person, but it was someone big like that, right? Mm-hmm. Sent Bill a letter and a check for $1,000. So he explained why, if you get large donations like this, or when you do, those people start having influence over your decision makings, who buys what. Maybe not everybody should be in AA, right? Or you should serve better coffee, or you should do this. And those influencers, based on their donations that you want to keep coming in, you start pleasing them. And so that's when they decided to set that limit of $1,000. And this was during a time where everybody was broke. Like, they were paying for this AA out of their own pocket through the world headquarters and things like that. And they could have really, really, really used the money. to keep the program going and growing. And they ended up setting this tradition up so that they would limit that, so that there wouldn't be that outside influence. It remained pure and honest and true to its members, because we're fully, supporting our own way and self-funded. So does that make sense? Does that answer your question on why they set the limit?
It does make sense, but you would think that, these limits are still pretty strict.
Yes, it started at 1,000 and now it's at 5 only.
Right. And that's how much I can give a year. But even if I die, I can only give 5,000.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very, very strict. And, but it's working, right? And it keeps everybody, it feels good to be able to contribute something. It doesn't make anybody feel less for not being able to contribute, as much money as some of those large contributors. So it keeps kind of everybody on that same playing field. And I just really appreciate it. I hated the traditions before until I started learning about it and hearing these stories and things like that. And I can really appreciate this one, because no matter what or where you're at or what status, how much money you have, we're all treated the same. None of us has any more influence over the other. And it keeps us, true to our belief systems and our core values. And I think that's good, because this program is teaching us those core values. And I've used that in my life since. I've thought about, it's not been so cool when I came in as the showboat and, here I gave this much money and then I was treated different, at a party or whatever. It's really not cool. It makes a lot of people feel bad, no matter how much you need money. But hey, they raised it to where they're at because they're probably keeping up with the costs. And I trust, because we're all self-run too, and appointed in those positions, that we're at an amount where if we absolutely needed to take more money, they would take more money. They'd raise the limit. So, and we all have influence over that. It's all talked about, voted on, and it's not a solo act, right?
But there are bills to pay. There's there's a lot of bills I didn't realize how much we actually, when you give to the donation basket, where all that goes to. There's lots of different levels.
They used to handwrite every single letter that people would write letters to the office, and they would respond to each of those letters. They would answer them, and by hand. Actually, Ed and I, we saw some of the correspondence from Bill W.'s first secretary and longtime secretary. We got to touch and see he used to write her postcards, when they would go on vacation, because she would, run the office or do whatever she needed to do. And she would handle all this correspondence. And she had beautiful handwriting, and anybody who made any sort of inquiry, she would handwrite a note back. And so would he. And that's how I think we were started in Canada, is they actually started getting so many letters. They started involving another, person. And they said, well, because a guy called and said, I want to start a group in Canada. They said, here, answer all these letters from people. And those are expensive. You got paper, right? You got someone writing it. You have, the cost of postage, all of those things, the time it takes to do it. There is expenses to keep the lights on, anything. So there are expenses, but it seems like we're covering it. So.
And it actually, I found a letter. It was the 7th tradition contribution. It was actually from the GSO, or the General Service Office. And it talks about there's 90,000 emails, letters, and phone calls each year just to the General Service Office, not even counting the things that get at every home group and at every one that's just at the general office. I thought that was pretty
it's incredible. And think of all the people behind the scenes that are running all those Zoom meetings and keeping that website alive and posting the grapevine and putting all the content. There's so many people that are, pitching meetings to be Zoom meetings for meetings on Zoom. And those all have to go through a process, with and a lot of them are volunteers, but we have to pay a lot of people to do this. So
right. And it's all done on the minimal amount.
Very minimal.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. It says it gets over 40,000 visits per day. This letter from the GSO says for email visits. I mean, the website gets 40,000 visits a day.
Isn't that amazing?
No.
Just think of like all of the websites out there. Like think about Google, right? We know that that's an astronomical number, but at AA is holding strong, the AA website at 40,000 clicks or visits a day. I mean, that's not the number of clicks. There's more clicks than that because then you click through that, but just visits or views a day. That's an incredible amount of people.
8 million books, pamphlets, videos, and audio podcasts are distributed annually.
One of the most published books ever written was the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And for the longest time, they were giving them out for free. They still do a lot of places.
That just makes you feel like awestruck, like you're part of this huge, I mean, probably one of the hugest organizations out there.
It's a very big organization. I don't think people realize how much, right?
Very humbling.
Yes.
Speaking of humbling, for our 7th step, but that's very humbling to know that.
And that's the other thing. We're supposed to be humble. It keeps us sober. And all these traditions were around those values. So it's trying to, they were set because the traditions weren't always there. They ended up having to be put in place about 14 years after AA was started, 14 years after the big book, actually. And because everybody started doing this sort of thing where they were like, well, so, some of these groups were like exclusive groups, right? Well, we're just going to kick everybody out because these people donate money and they don't want to be in a group with people with, that are a lower status or a lower class than them. And they started hearing all these things. And then they were writing to the home office. Well, no, we're doing things like this and we're doing things like this. And that's why they set these in motion and started writing the traditions. Bill started writing the traditions and doing all those things. So I just got distracted because I looked down at my phone. I told you I would do that. Like I look at a comment. And I saw that we missed the question of the day. So let's pause for a moment.
Oh, okay.
And
that's right.
Now Carl can do the big bam question of the week. So I came up with the question of the week on the fly this morning. The question of the week, and I'm asking you first, obviously, Bambi, is what is your biggest pet peeve?
Well, so from the time you asked me, my brain had to go, my biggest pet peeve. And I decided that, I would make it one that would incorporate the most things that drive me crazy. So it would be like assumptions, but that's not really it. Assumptions, yes. Everyone in this house assumes that if they leave dishes in the sink, I will just do them. So,
oh my gosh, I think I live in your house.
That has to be, I don't know why that drives me so crazy. We have a dishwasher there. It's always unpacked because I make sure it's unpacked. So if you use something, stick it away in the dishwasher. Don't leave it in my kitchen sink. Drives me absolutely crazy, but they will just assume that if they leave it, Bambi will come along and will take care of it. So that's
because you were a people pleaser for all these years and now you have boundaries.
That's right. So today I have let my dear husband know that I'm going to make Korean short ribs for dinner when I can thaw them out in the sink. But because the sink is full.
A little motivation. I love it. That's one of Chris's big pet peeves too, is he cannot stand. It's not so much leaving the dishes in the sink, but it's the not rinsing off of the dishes. Rinsing them. Oh my gosh. And that's so bothersome too. It's like, why wouldn't you rinse that off? And you know what I thought about as you were talking about this? Remember when we were kids, like I was forced to do the dishes all the time by hand.
Dishwasher.
No dishwasher.
No.
And now kids don't ever have to do anything. So they never have to, they never know that food and shit gets stuck on the goddamn plate and it's gross and it's fucking disgusting. It smells. The whole sink smells when you leave
worst.
it in there. It's so gross. I can't stand it. Oh, that's why I love bleach.
Or when you rinse it off, you rinse something off and it's all those particles just sit in the bottom of the sink.
Yes. Why would you do that?
No.
I think it's gross. It's just like washing your hands. Wash the sink.
Exactly.
Yes, I get it. I hear you. So I like you, Bambi and I had a little discussion, kind of chat back and forth. How can you just narrow it down to one pet peeve? Yes. I know, like I'm working on it. That's one of my character defects. I don't want to have so many pet peeves. But the one, well, there's two, and I'm going to tell you both. But the one major one that comes right to the top of my head immediately is when you ask somebody a question and they don't answer the question you asked, right? So like, where are you right now? Well, I was, over here and driving, but I'm heading home. No, I asked you, where are you right now? I didn't ask if you were heading home. Where are you right now? Right? You ask someone a question and they tell you something different. It's very natural. Now, since it's like always in the forefront in my mind, people do it all the time.
Right. Because you're thinking about it.
I'm heading home. No, I said, where are you? I'm heading home. Where are you right now? I'm in the car on Highway 12 in Delano, right?
Right.
That's where my location is. So that's the one thing is you ask, and that's a very petty example, but people do it a lot. And I mean, there's a few, but I hate when people do a project. Like if you're going to do something, just do it the right way the first time. Like rinsing off the dishes. You're right there. Like, why don't you just put it in the dishwasher? You're standing right there. Just go all the way through. Just follow it through.
Follow the process.
Just follow the process and don't leave it half-assed. Or why do you want to come back and do it again? You had your hand on the dish. You already started the work. Why do you want to start that work again when you go put it in the dishwasher or whatever? When people don't finish or follow through with what they're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a procrastinator. I put projects off like nonstop. I've got projects that are sitting around here that I've started and it's been a year, but when I do it, as I'm doing it right. It's a project, but, and I'm doing it my way. But I guess, I don't know. It's a weird question. Nobody else had anything to mention on passive aggressive. Jordan says passive aggressive behavior. That's terrible. Oh, that's incredibly. I don't like that either. I know someone who does that a lot, and it's not in a like joking manner or fun manner. It's really hurtful and intended to be mean, and it drives me crazy. So yes, that passive aggressiveness is nuts. All right. So back to tradition 7. Again, we're talking about tradition 7. If you just joined us, and we're talking about how every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. So again, the second part of that question what discussion that we were having is, then you have to start thinking about corporate sponsorships and things like that. And that's another misrepresentation, all of a sudden, like a company is, or a big corporation is making large donations and getting a write-off. And they're saying that, they want influence. They want influence, and we're keeping away that outside influence. The intended purpose for the tradition and offering up money was that some people didn't have it. And remember, everybody had potatoes and only potatoes in the 30s when this started.
Right.
So when you went to a potluck, everybody brought, you'd have 20 dishes made out of potatoes because that's all you had. So they would pass the hat. You'd throw in if you had, right? And you could contribute, you'd throw in the hat. And if you needed a buck, you took a buck. So it was to help people and contribute as much as you can when you can, and keep the place going. What else? What other questions did you notice or things that you had?
Well, so what happens? So what if I'm one of those people out there that, my friend has been helped through AA so much, and I don't know anything about it because I don't go to those meetings. So I don't know about a 7th tradition. I didn't listen to the podcast on the 7th tradition by Friends in Recovery. So I don't know about it, and I donate. What happens then? You get a check, a anonymous, donor. What happens to it? What do they do with that?
Well, they would send, I don't know exactly, but I know that they've had to reject money before and they've returned it.
Well, I know I read in the 12 traditions even that they rejected that one lady had died and actually left like 10,000 in a will. And that's when they first made the decision that they were not going to take it. And they struggled over it because they really needed that money at that point.
They really did, especially at that time.
Right. Because we're talking, early 40s or late 30s or somewhere along there, and they really needed it. And but they turned that away back then. So
they turned it away.
Yeah. Now, what if you don't know where it comes from? I mean, what do you do with the money then? Do they like donate it somewhere else?
Jesus, Bambi, hell, I don't know. It must be somewhere. There's something written somewhere about it. But there must be a process, and I don't know what they do with it, but they do not take it. They won't take it.
They won't take it. They just
won't take it.
And it is, I mean, this money is, though, the money you do give, it's tax deductible, right? I mean,
yeah.
So
it is.
I mean, not that anyone's given a bunch because we're not allowed to, right? So
I agree. I mean, there are a lot of questions that I had about this too, because I thought this is so funny that you say that, because as a newcomer, when I first started when I say newcomer, getting into the traditions, I couldn't understand that answer either.
Yeah, it just seems so weird. And then I did come across a thing that said, it said, we didn't and we don't take money from outsiders, no matter how kind or well-intentioned. Who stands for we help ourselves.
Yes. We help ourselves.
Right.
We're strong, independent people that we just don't always know it. And again, these are traditions and values. These values that they're putting or trying to instill in us are to make our lives better. This is to create normal functioning human beings in today's world. Anywhere's world.
And we didn't start out that way. I mean, most of us were not trustworthy.
No, we didn't even pay our bills. Nobody wanted to help us or treat us, or even at the clinic or the hospital, because nobody paid their bill. No alcoholic does that.
Right. You wouldn't have wanted to pass a basket around because someone would have been taken from it instead of donating to it. Right. I mean, we were not trustworthy. Where was our next drink coming from? Where was our next drug coming from? So, so it's teaching us those behaviors that we just didn't learn in life.
No, we didn't. And it's crazy, right? And even the good values, I know, and I'm confident, like instinctually, I had good morals, right? But as a symptom of my disease, all that went out the window, especially at the end. It just progressively kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'd reduced myself down to this animalistic level. But so even when we do start out with, it doesn't matter if we've had the best upbringing, this happens, but this brings us full circle, brings us back. And, really, I think the traditions should be the 12 ways to deal with people. You can use all these same traditions as core values in your business, how you run your corporation in your business. You can use, all of these are just great life concepts and values to live your life by. And I think everybody should know them. And I hope that everybody uses our podcast, that we've gone through them once a month and they're learning. So,
because the 12, I say that about the 12 steps all the time, is that this should be a life program out there for everyone, how they should teach it in the school system, teach you how to be a better person and a better friend and a better, everything. Just a life lesson. And as a newbie, I just didn't know that the 12 traditions were important, or that they really had this kind of meaning behind them.
There's a huge meaning behind everyone, and they're very informative, and just really more rules on how to deal, like I said, how to operate yourself, how to deal with people I don't know. I just really think they should be called how to deal with people, because, I should be self-supporting, right? I don't need to take all these outside contributions. I can support myself. It makes me feel better. It makes me, have confidence in myself. I don't need someone to take care of me and pay my bills for me. I can do it on my own. Doesn't that make sense?
It does make sense. And,
and I feel like I should probably teach my kids that. Maybe I should teach my kids, you don't need to rely on me. I know I brought you up and funded all of your things until now, but you can start contributing. This will make you grow as an individual and a human being and practice these principles out in life. So
right. In all our affairs, right?
In all our affairs, all of our affairs.
That's right.
No longer affairs with people. Just kidding.
And then I was also reading where it talked a lot about the how they didn't want it to hinder into the spirituality aspect. So I'm assuming that just goes along the lines of the growth again, with how it affects our spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Again, it does. It always. There's some the grapevine, which if you guys don't know what the grapevine is, you can go to aagrapevine.org. It's awesome. It's all these letters that people have written, and there's a whole book of every publication or every submission that Bill W. did. You can get the history of it. But they come out with this checklist. They're big, and the grapevine is big into the traditions. And so the checklist asks you several questions, and these are to apply to yourself. And they directly correlate to the seventh tradition. I'm looking for number 7. Okay. It says, honestly, now, do I do all I can to help AA, my group, my central office, my GSO remain self-supporting? So do I help my group remain self-supporting? Could I put a little more into the basket on behalf of the new person who can't afford it yet? How generous was I when drunk in a bar room? I was very generous when I was drunk in a bar room. I had lots of people that my friends were not my friends. I would dump all of my money on crazy random impulsive things. And Ed's talked about many times, doing it to make himself look like a big shot, right? But you're piss poor when you walk out the door. You got nothing for a week, can't feed your kids or do whatever. A lot of us did that. We get loose with our money, and we want to, our pride and ego gets in the way, and we like being looked at as we're contributing and things like that. But this is saying, be generous in a different way now, right? The person who can't afford it in the basket, yeah, go ahead, put $1 or $2 and $5. I don't care what you do. Hold that person up for a while, right? Until they can start being a productive human, contributing to society, and they can put their own money in the basket.
Tony says it's a really good plan, a plan for good life skills, which is exactly what you were saying. So, and Sandy said it correlates to enabling for her. Self-reliance is the key to caring for oneself. So exactly what you were saying.
Yes. And these are skills that we should teach everybody and use in life. How do I or my group support our international journals of Alcoholics Anonymous, Grapevine or Lovina? I don't know. We don't need an answer. But it's talking about support. How do I support it? There are so many things that you can start learning about how to support without contributing these over $5,000 checks, right?
Right.
You can contribute in different ways. And that means, hey, we're here for service. I can contribute by giving service. That is the best way to keep myself sober, right? The other way that you can contribute is when you buy books or anything related to AA, order it from the Grapevine website or the AA website, because there's a certain percentage of every purchase that goes back to the organization. So, and you get a discount. So it's, again, helping and being supportive. I've bought coins, the coins that we give away, the medallions.
Right.
I've bought a whole set and given them to the, when they were running out at one of our groups and didn't have them, I was able to get them quickly, bought them and donated them to one of the groups I used to go to, so that they would have, everybody was out of 6 months coins. Like, you couldn't get your hand on 6 month coins, but
you knew that money was going to the right to the right
Yes.
reason for the right,
Yes.
exactly.
So I wasn't spending it on my latte, even though
Right.
I could, right? I was helping support my group and my organization. Is it more important for a group to get a big AA collection from a few people or a smaller collection in which more members participate? I like that one.
Absolutely.
So
That
what's more
makes sense.
important? Is it more important to get a few checks from our lot of money from a few people, or is it more important that everybody contributes, right? They feel like they're adding value, that they have ownership, they have responsibility, and they're contributing. That's
That
a
they're
big
just as
thing.
important, that they are
Yes, just as important.
just as important.
Yes. Bambi doesn't get to choose that we have Starbucks coffee at our meetings, right? Just because, she donated to $5,000 or whatever, the money.
Right,
That
exactly.
was our largest contributor. We decide that as a group. That's why you have your group conscience meetings and things like that, so that you can, not one person who is giving the most monetarily gets to make all of the decisions and just show up, whatever, everyone's participating. Another question is, I don't know. Does my group have a prudent reserve? If yes, do I know what that amount is? That's a good one. It's about being open and honest, right? That we're sharing, we're all participating. We know exactly where we stand, and we can get to a place that we need to if we have to, work harder or give more, right? If a family member, work colleague, or close friend who is not an AA member wants to make a financial contribution to my group, should the group accept it? We just talked about this.
Absolutely not. It's
No.
got to be from us, from within.
Be within. We don't. And it's then the second question, part of that question is, it's so interesting because you brought that up right away when we started. What if my group is short on funds? Doesn't matter. You better, get at it, right? Get more people, go help some more alcoholics and get them into the meeting, and make sure people are learning and knowing about the traditions, and that we are self-funded and self-supporting.
Now, I did read too, Tiff, and I don't know if this is true or not, because I was reading from all different sources, but that you can do fundraisers and different things like that. And that is allowed to go into if it's earned through an AA type, I don't know, sometimes they do 50-50 raffles, or they'll do things like that. Now that can go into your group fund. If you're running low, you can have a t-shirt drive and sell a Bill W t-shirt or something like that.
Any sort of raffle, like our group does a lot of raffles. People will donate. The e-bike was the last one, and sold raffle tickets, to within our group, and raffled off the e-bike, and you can do those things. You can have fundraisers, and they're supported and run by your group, and you can accept those donations, for the raffle, because again, there's a set price. A lot of times, you're not just going out there and saying, hey, contribute here, and I'm going to give you a receipt for a write-off. You're actually contributing and doing something communicative. What else? Do you have any other questions?
Well, and the one thing I did read that I found was interesting, because it hit exactly on what you were saying about like, like when you were at the bar, you could, buy the whole bar around or whatever, and it was Bill W was talking about when he gave someone $5 after they had had a horrible relapse, and he gave them $5 to get themselves straight. But he said he wasn't even sure if he had maybe contributed to their next drink or not.
Right.
But he went to his home group that night and was only going to put a nickel in the pot or something like that for his home group. And it hit him how egocentric he had been, and how much that was. So I guess it's all coming together for me a little bit, some of those questions, because really that makes a lot of sense. That why are we doing it? What are the motives pure? Are they for the right reason?
Yes. Yes, I'm reading about that same kind of piece. He gives a few examples in the tradition, the 12 steps and 12 traditions. And it says that then I woke up. I, who had boasted my generosity that morning, was treating my own club worse than the distant alcoholics who had forgotten to send the foundation their dollars. I realized that my $5 gift to the slippy was an ego-feeding proposition, bad for him and bad for me. There was a place in AA where spirituality and money would not mix, and that was in the hat.
Right.
So very good example.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. That made me really realize also the way we enhance our dignity and self-respect and everything as a group by having that kind of group conscience, but also our self-conscious as well.
Yes, I agree 100%. And, like I said, it makes you, like I said, and you said, like it makes you feel better when you can start contributing. It doesn't have to be, equal to anybody else from a monetary perspective, but we all are doing it and it's all coming from within, and it feels good to be a part of something. And that's just like the first few traditions. It's about being a part of something, right? Starting the lightning.
And we were isolating before, most of us were like isolating, or if we were with people, we weren't kind to people, or we were using them for our own values and our own, so to actually be part of something and to be welcomed and accepted, makes a big difference.
And we're learning, and with like-minded people who understood me finally. I didn't have to pretend. I could be open. I could be honest. And on top of it, they're teaching me good life values and skills. My group is through our traditions. I was just looking at another thing I saw in here. When the facts were printed, there was a profound reaction. People familiar with endless drives for charitable funds, AA presented a strange and refreshing spectacle. Approving editorials here and abroad generated a wave of confidence in the integrity of Alcoholics Anonymous. They pointed out that the irresponsible had become responsible, and that making financial independence part of its tradition, Alcoholics Anonymous had received an ideal that the era has almost forgotten. So again, making the irresponsible responsible now is what we're transforming people into doing through this tradition. And now that we've done that, it's like we can't forget it. So that's why the traditions are important, so that we continue to move forward like this as a group, because this has been a big part of our personal growth, our personal success. Keeping us sober is feeling like we're a contributing member of society. And that comes from this tradition and putting those values in place again and making us responsible to be out in the world, I guess, productive or whoever, our new self, right? Discovering who we really are. I'm not saying I'm new, but I discovered who I really was and what I was doing and where I could change things. There was a lot of wheres. And I didn't need to be that big showboat. I didn't need to have the best and the brightest and the shiniest. There were much better things that I could do that were of more value personally, financially, in all sorts of different ways.
And I guess my other question that was a big one, and I came across it a bunch while I was researching it, is how were we impacted with the virtual world with this tradition? Because it changed everything. The basket was just, it was such a habit to put $1 in the basket or $2 in the basket. How has AA been impacted overall with the COVID and the shutdown?
So there was a huge impact because, first of all, we didn't know how to have meetings. And then all of a sudden there was this financial expense when they started to have the idea of virtual meetings. Well, most of the groups couldn't cover the cost of having their own, group meetings. So they actually, for quite some time, the GSO supported each individual group that wanted a virtual meeting by paying their Zoom fees until they could, again, there was an end date, right? Until you can get up and running, which is like figuring out how you're going to self-support your group, right?
Sure.
Figure it out. And as soon as you figure that out, you'll take on the responsibility of paying. It's just like paying rent that you paid for the place that you were holding your meetings at. There was costs there, right? And, those, now that those are gone and you're holding your meetings a different way, then you can start paying for your own Zoom fees. And so there was a financial impact. Then it was the impact of, how do I contribute?
Right.
So, there's so many ways that came there's, and think of all the positives because of this, because of like our traditions, because of how we do things, and we're self-supporting, how progressive we became in about 90 days, right?
That's
we went
true.
from archaic, behaviors and thing to the 21st century, where we're all of a sudden, it's like, all right, now we're having virtual meetings. They're still having an impact, even more impacting more people, because more people participated. They found out when they people don't always have time or to go to a meeting physically.
Right. Or they're
or
remote
no
somewhere. Right.
Yeah, there's no meetings where they live.
Correct.
Not a large community. So they got more members to be involved and start participating. So this virtual world put that in place. Now so now we're helping our members, we're creating more, right? Now we have to figure out a way where each of those members can contribute still.
So we can be self-supporting still.
Yes. And so they started doing that. They started, collecting money virtually, that through Venmo, through whatever means that they had set up. They could mail checks. There still was snail mail, so you could mail checks to wherever it was, and as long as you communicated it, and people still did contribute and mail checks to keep the GSO going. Started sending their money there, and that made sense, so it all filtered to the right spot. They started going to the GSO and sending their money there, those that could keep that up and running, because that was keeping the individual meetings up and running by paying for the Zoom costs. And what a great sense of community that happened during that time. So lots of good things and positives came. I've been the most fortunate as an alcoholic and addict because of COVID. And it's because of the communities. I wouldn't have this community without it. This community wouldn't be here. So lots of good impacts.
Yeah, I came after the COVID meetings were still up and running, but I'm like 45 minutes to an hour from a meeting from where I'm at. I'm like in the middle of nowhere. They have maybe one meeting that's local once a week, if someone can do it. And I mean, it's just a small little podunk town. So I've been like all virtual. I hate to say thanks to COVID, but thanks to COVID, I've been able to maintain sobriety because I can hop on the Friends in Recovery meetings once or twice a day, and I can get what I need out of it.
Hands down, it kept me sober and made me who I am today, was because of those virtual meetings. And that was all, again, fully funded and self-supported. And I think that's very cool that think of the impact, like you said, the impact on the website, the impact of the number of books that have been printed, the AA Big Book. Now think of the impact AA has had on the world, right? Where we actually had our shit together enough to keep going, keep our meetings going, set up something virtual that nobody had ever really thought would ever be effective or functional even. And we did it.
Right. And our listeners absolutely believe it too, because Jordan says, love hearing the impacts to COVID and the virtual world has had on all the traditions, especially this one holds up. Tony says COVID is why he got sober. And Sandy says, I don't know what I would have done without these virtual meetings.
Yes.
So everyone is passionate about how these have really developed. And, and it's not like you're just hopping. I mean, like with Friends in Recovery, at least, I've created lifelong friendships. True connections. It's not like you're going into a room of different people every day. You've been able to find your group where you belong and stay there.
And I've traveled all over the country to see these people that I've met all over from different groups that I'm a part of. And I think that's that would never have otherwise happened. I would have been had the one meeting, like you said, that I had the opportunity to go to once a week, unless I wanted to drive 45 minutes away one way to participate in a meeting, which I was doing in the beginning. I was driving 45 minutes just to be a part of a group. And when that shut down, it was crazy. But because of traditions like this and the values and the concepts that we all have a great, more minds, multiple minds can come up with a lot more ideas than just one mind, right?
Absolutely.
And so we all put ourselves together and made it happen. And I just love it that we were progressive like that and worked together as a group. And we actually functioned as a team. Here we are again, those irresponsible drunks. All right.
Tony and Sandy
go ahead.
Tony and Sandy both agree. It says, look at all these Zoom babies who have only attended 1 to 2 real meetings.
Yes.
Or 3 to 4 meetings. So it's working.
It is working. They're staying sober. I think that there is, like, I started to miss going to an in-person meeting, but now I love having the option of doing both. I'm 90% virtual, and maybe even more, 95% virtual, 5%, in person and live, and that's just, again, keeping that group alive, participating in the actions. There are people who can't get on meetings, on the virtual meetings. So there's the flip side of things.
True.
And, we get to do, and it's nice to connect with people and, again, feel like that, that human perspective. So those are all just, all meetings are great. I've never had a bad one yet. I've had some that I don't like, but they're all been good. So I think that's it. We're going to wrap it up on Tradition 7, unless you have something else you want to talk about, or overall, how do you feel now from a newcomer's perspective? Do you feel like you understand it more?
I understand it so much more. I'm actually going to, and any newbies out there listening, go back and listen to the traditions on the podcast, because I'm going to do that, because it's a real person's point of view. It's not what you're reading on the books, but it's what, you guys are discussing. Yes. And I understand it so much better now, because I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't we want to take that money? And why couldn't we could do this with it, and we could do that with it. But I understand so much more now, the reasons, the deeper meanings.
Yes.
Why
I felt the same way that you did. The same way. I was like, these people need me, man. Like why aren't they taking this money?
Right.
I could go and get that money, right? Like, again, ego, right? I could do it. I could change this. Am I the first person to come along to AA that says that we should get more money and think we can really do this? Again, perspective, humility, all these things. And then flip side, all of a sudden you start contributing, making things happen, and it has come full circle. And I had to have someone teach me too. So yes, go back, listen to the traditions. It's always the 4th show of the month, or the last show of the month is the tradition of the month. And they've all been interesting discussions. Ed always says too, he's never been a guy who knew a lot about the traditions. Like, you read them off and in the meetings and we talk, just read them off and then we stop, right? Or you can actually go, if you go to AA.org, AAintergroup.org, you can search for tradition meetings only. Like, it's just all about the tradition. And I learned a lot. You can search on YouTube. You can listen to the traditions. People have meetings about the traditions, and there's lots of videos on the traditions where it's actually video of Bill W. working through and writing the tradition.
Check that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So YouTube is a great resource to see live video of people either teaching the tradition, talking about the tradition, and to actually see how Bill W. himself, held these meetings and came up with the concepts and actually had to sell it and put it and send it out to the groups. So, and enforce it.
Good info.
Yeah, but it keeps us alive. All right, guys. I think that's it. We're going to head out, say over and out. What does Jersey Ed? He always says, stay sober, everyone.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.